All right, guys, in today's video, we're gonna make push sticks. That's right, one of the most crucial safety elements when pushing wood across some sort of blade. Most specifically, the table saw. Now, for years, I have used push sticks that I've purchased. Whether it's this long black one that I got with the saw stop, this bench dog gripper, or this micro jig gripper. Now, these have worked very, very well, and I've used them for years. I've had no problems pushing any kind of wood across my table saw. However, I don't think you can call yourself a woodworker if you don't make one yourself. So, since I've got 3 that I use on a daily basis, I figured we'll make 3 new ones. So I scoured the web for different designs that I think would benefit me in my shop, and I came up with 3 that I think are really cool. The first one, I'm gonna call the stapler. So it looks just like those old classic metal staplers that you'll use. I'm a fan of this one because your hand is over the workpiece. So we've got our stapler, and then we've got the classic handsaw design. So this one is much beefier. Your hand is further way back, but there's more weight on it, so that should be interesting. And then the last one, well, accidents happen. And the saw stop, the biggest reason I got the saw stop was for this, not to lose a phalange. So I think this push stick is actually kind of funny. It's on a play on it, but hopefully it's a good reminder to stay safe in the shop. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna cut out these three push sticks, and then we're gonna put them to use. We're gonna see how well they work at the table saw doing different functions. How do they compare to the ones that purchased? And will we keep them around in the shop? So join me today as we start pushing our way through a new dimension. Push sticks, let's go. All right, we've got all 3 push sticks made. Our first one is our handsaw push stick. Looks exactly like a handsaw. We've got a really good grip on it. And then we've got this little end on it that's gonna hold the wood or push the wood through. Obviously, that's gonna end up getting cut. I'll have to put a new one on. Then we have our stapler, which I really like because my hand is over the piece of wood. We also have the sacrificial strip on the back side, and I cut several of those, so when I tear through one, I can just put another one on. Okay, and then the last one is our kind of safety hand, missing 2 digits, our pinky and our ring finger right here. But I've got it tilted backwards so I can hold up and push through the cut, or this way so that you guys can see it right there. And of course, we had to add fingernails and some joints and some knuckles just because it looks cool. But you know what? Now it's time to test these things and see exactly how they do. So, to the table saw. So our first piece, this is gonna be a little, looks like 4 1/8. So we're gonna take just a tad off of that. Let's get it right to 4. And that way I should be able to use the big one. Actually, we'll start with the handsaw and then we'll work our way down. The great thing about this, especially lengthwise, look how much contact is on there. So I'm able to hold this thing down. I'll have no problem pushing through the cut. The other thing to take note, the excess right here, this little notch is also 3/4. So anything smaller than that, this one will not work. But luckily, this is 3/4. All right, now one thing to notate with this one, the hand is so far back on the push block that I couldn't really hold it straight. I actually had to angle it a little bit so that I'm applying pressure not only down to the fence and also forward. And you can tell I had a little bit of burning right there. So that could pose an issue on some bigger pieces. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one. We're going to use our stapler. All right, got a good clean cut, no burning. I like this as I'm able to get my hand over the workpiece and the downforce keeps it nice and sturdy. I didn't have any issues keeping it right against the fence. So far the stapler, I like that. And then once again, I can replace this when I need it. So I think that's a bonus. This one, so far, I really like. And we're gonna use our handy guy. This one I'm a little nervous about just because you're gonna have to hold the wood and then you'll push the wood through from back here. So either way, this is definitely a two-hand operation when you're using this guy. But you know what? High five, let's go. All right, so the cut is still smooth. I wouldn't say a lot of burning, but it did take a minute. So I had to hold the piece, the workpiece here, and then get it going. And then if you saw it on camera, you may have seen it, it actually slipped off a little bit because it was kind of like this and went down and around. I can't remember exactly, I had to look back at the footage, but holding it here is just a little uncomfortable. So I'm not sure how useful this one's gonna be. Outside, it looks really cool. So now you guys should really see these things in action without the guard there. So you'll be able to see the push through the entire way, which is exciting. Now, once again, we'll take an 1/8 inch out. We got to back up a little bit. So as I put us back to 3.5, and we'll start with our handsaw, stapler, down to our little hand. A very smooth cut here, no issues. You saw I was able to apply pressure all the way through. I actually thought that went very well. So the handsaw did excellent when we have that guard removed. Good consistent pressure, a nice little kick at the end. Another great cut, smooth all the way through, no issues there. Once again, I like being on top of the cut. My hand is far away from the blade. That went really, really well. Okay, time for a hand. You can tell some pretty good burning right there. And that's really when it's getting started. There's no pressure applied at the front of the board. So honestly, that's a little sketchy. I don't really like making that cut. That's usually when I'll get out my paddle, I can hold it all the way to the cut, or the micro gripper, and I'll go around the blade. So I think the hand, if we're making small skinny pieces and I've got the blade guard on, I think it's gonna be fine. or if I've got something here, right, and then I'm pushing through, probably okay. But for bigger pieces, I don't think this is gonna work. There's not enough pressure downwards if all you're doing is from the back. So if this is like your follow, like your final push, it's probably okay. But I would say for normal cutting, this is not great, although it looks super rad. All right, guys, and just like that, we've completed our test. Each one of the push sticks we put through, and they all passed. They were all able to successfully push through wood, through a cut, safely. Now, I will say the handsaw design is probably my favorite, just because there's so much area that's touching the board, holding it down, pushing through, and my hand is so far away from the blade. Initially, I was a little nervous because it's so far back, there may be some rocking, but I really, really like this design. It's probably why this is the most common push stick design. I would make one of these first before I made anything else. It's probably the easiest to make. I think I made this thing in 15 minutes. The second design, the good old trusty stapler, this actually worked really well. I did like having my hand in the middle of the cut, more downward pressure, even pressure. I felt more confident pushing through, that I wasn't gonna move side to side. The bigger cut on the handsaw, I did feel a little nervous, but it could be it was my first time. I did not test the need to go through the sacrificial back, but I've got several of those, so we'll be doing that in the future. And then our really cool missing fingers hand push stick, it works, but I wouldn't say this is gonna be your go-to. It just doesn't apply enough downward pressure towards the front or even the middle of a cut. If you're cutting something small, maybe like a 6-inch you're ripping through, I think if you're gonna use this, it's gonna be when you have a two-hand cut. So you've got a bigger piece of wood that you're going through the cut, and maybe you've got a couple inches on this side left and more on this side. You're gonna take one of your grippers and then push through like that. I think that would work fine, but for normal operation, I probably wouldn't suggest this. The same that I wouldn't suggest the SawStop, the black one. I wouldn't normally use this. I don't feel that it's got enough pressure going through to keep it against the fence, down and through. So this is usually an ending push that I use this for. That's why it's always on top of my fence, because I'll hold and I'll push it through last. I think the same thing for this one. So this will be a good finishing cut, or good for finishing your cut, but not for every operation. Now, it does look super cool, and I'll probably still use it because on videos, it may spark interest for people to say, what the heck is that? And yeah, it looks cool. So all in all, every one of these was very easy to make, and they can be a replacement for the store-bought ones, but I think every one has its own application. So even if you look at one of these type, this paddle type, these are really good for putting pressure down. I use them on two-handed applications, or the gripper, the micro jig. If you're trying to rip tiny pieces, I would not use any of these. I would only use the gripper. You're able to adjust it, hold pressure down to the side, and go over the blade without it touching anything. And that, for me, makes me feel the most safe. You've also got lots of feather boards, all kinds of applications. I would definitely invest in any safety materials or things that you can get for any one of your tools, table saw most specifically. But yeah, these will work. They're fun to build. I think everyone should build one. Now, as I'm making these and using these, well, I gotta have a place to store these. So I think for the next video, or at least a video down the road, we're gonna make a caddy that's gonna sit on top of the table saw fence. Hopefully you guys stick around for that one. But until next time, have a good day.